Open session. So calling the meeting to order at 7:05. Roll slide salute. Richard, could you raise please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call please.
Mr. Faust?
Here.
Mr. Rashay?
Here.
Mr. Levy?
Present.
Ms. Gould?
Here.
Ms. Weidman?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. So announcement, recording of the meeting. The district digitally records the audio portions of the meeting. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. That would be Sandy. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts the meetings, and there's no microphone at the podium.
They're pretty flat.
Oh, they're there. Okay, so that is the microphones are for the television. So please step to the podium if you're speaking, because we want to make sure that anybody watching will be able to hear your comments. All right. We met in closed session on several items: legal counsel, existing litigation, conference with labor negotiator, and in public employee discipline, dismissal, release, and complaint. No action was taken on any of those items. All right, so here we go. We need an approval of the minutes for August 22nd.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Move approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, so we will move into communications. I have cards. The communications for the board, for members of the public that want to speak on something that's not on the agenda, which I think is quite a few things here. That will happen under under people wishing to address the board, and I have cards. If you would like to speak, I would need a card. And I'll call them in order so we can kind of line up so we can move through this as efficiently as possible. So communications, LSEA,
We have a
CSEA?
few members that would like to speak, yes.
Oh, sure, okay.
We've turned our cards in.
Oh,
Or we
okay.
will turn our cards in, sorry.
Okay, do you want to speak under LSEA or do you want to speak under?
They have their own cards in, sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right, CSEA?
Not at this time.
Okay, here we
Come
go.
on, let's sue in the room.
You can come through this door. So we have people wishing to address the board, and the order of the cards I have here is Diane. I'm going to butcher this. Bodie, thank you. Then Tara Dreyer, Kathy Alderson. Why don't we start there and then we'll go. So come on up.
Hi.
Oh, yes,
I have a
Josie?
clarifying question. Is it 3 minutes for LSCA speakers or people wishing to address the board?
It's 3 minutes for people wishing to address, for all, isn't it?
Yeah, just
Good
clarifying.
person.
So I will give a 30-second warning when you're at 2.5 minutes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Diane Barghouti. I'm a fourth-year teacher at Ocean Shore. I've really enjoyed starting my career here in Pacifica. I appreciate the access to professional development, mentorship, and the tight-knit community here. Teachers in Pacifica work very hard, as is evidenced by the high-quality education available here in Pacifica. I know that Pacifica School District has invested a lot of time and money in professional development around the Common Core standards, and I would hate to see that money wasted on teachers who leave for higher-paying neighboring school districts. I've been reluctant to seek employment in other districts because I've been optimistic that we would see a salary increase. I was shocked to hear the proposed benefit cap in exchange for a measly 1% salary increase. Even as a single person, I'm struggling to pay rent in a shared apartment. A 1% increase in an already small salary is hardly incentive for me or any other teacher to stay in this district. Without competitive salaries or competitive total compensation packages, we will not be able to attract or retain committed teachers who serve as the foundation of the high-quality education the students get in Pacifica. Thank you.
am one of those members of the Kaiser single employee plans. I am one of the people that's supposed to be the most attracted to the district's new proposed plan, in which we give up certain health and wellness benefits to see a salary increase. And I will admit that this looks attractive. In the short term, a raise in salary would certainly help me. However, I think that this is contrary to our goals as a district. I've been told that our number one LCAP goal is to attract and retain quality teachers. And if we truly want to achieve that goal, there are two issues that have to be addressed. The first is the health and the wellness benefits. The proposed new plan hinders retention. I've had multiple teachers say, I cannot stay in Pacifica if I lose my benefits. It also makes the district less attractive to those of us who may be planning families or even who plan to get old one day. We recognize that a bump in salary now, while nice, does not benefit us in the long term. Also, the current policy that we have is one of the most attractive things to new teachers. They know we don't pay a lot. We can't hide that fact. If we take away our benefits, what is going to attract them? We are certainly not going to see a rise in salary that equals what we currently have in benefits. In addition to the benefits, there's the issue of salary. Last year, we got a raise. Yes! I was so excited until about 2 weeks later, I got a letter from my landlord who said, I'm raising your rent more than the salary raise you just received. I was almost in tears. I had to consider getting a second job. I had to consider moving out of where I live now. At the rate I'm paid now, I struggle just to keep up with the cost of inflation. And many of my fellow teachers have to take on second jobs, driving for Lyft, tutoring students, working at Pottery Barn, just to pay the bills. More and more is being asked of us each year. Common Core, Readers and Writers Workshop, more assessments. I have worked harder in Pacifica School District than any district before. But I welcome this challenge, and I appreciate the opportunities we're given to grow. But the reality is, you're asking for more and paying less than many other districts out there. And while your current teachers rise to that challenge on a daily basis, we can only ask so much of new people that we want to attract to our district. They don't have the same ties to the community. They don't have the same ties to their coworkers that keep us here. So I know that people are up in arms about the changes in healthcare. I agree that as an LSEA member,
30 seconds.
perfect, that is not a direction I want to go. But more importantly, if we truly want to attract and retain highly qualified teachers, we have to consider not just the benefits, but the salary. We can't take away from one in order to increase the other. Thank you.
Kathy? Okay. And then behind that will be Michael Robert, Don Potter, Tony Hartman, just so you guys are kind of queuing up. Okay. Hey, Kathy.
Hi, board members and colleagues. I'm here, unfortunately, I'm Kathy Alderson, 7th grade, 8th grade math, IBL. I'm here today, unfortunately, to express my opposition to your proposed, your proposal for the total compensation package. Teaching is a second career of mine, and I've been out in the professional world, the private sector, and I know that this is a very popular strategy for businesses to reduce costs. However, I've also been there, and I know what it does to the workplace. I know what it does to the morale, and I know what it does to productivity. It declines. And so it's, if it was your goal to dishearten us, I think you've succeeded. Pacifica School District is a community of professionals who we all signed on knowing that our salary would be less to teach the children in Pacifica, but that we offer an excellent benefits package. This is the selling point when we try and recruit our friends and other highly qualified teachers. I love working in my community, and I feel lucky and honored to be part of this well-respected community. And every day I work very hard to make sure that not to let my colleagues down and my students down. But what you have offered as a potential compensation package tells me that you don't value my dedication nor my effort. You do not see me and my fellow teachers as community members, but rather numbers. And I'm telling you right now that I'm one of those expensive numbers. I'm one of those that chose Blue Shield family. And the reason I did that is because my district offered me an opportunity for me to continue to see the doctor that I've seen for nearly 30 years. I chose it because it offered me an opportunity for my children to see the only doctor that they've ever known. So switching to Kaiser was not an option at the time because it was offered to me. But now this district is telling me that I have a choice, again a choice, but it comes at a huge price, and one that I can't afford, and I know a lot of teachers can't afford. And what's worse is that the money that I would be contributing to make up the difference goes to everybody else, including myself, as a salary raise. And this is like a modern day version of to rob Peter to pay Paul in my mind. My last point is I look to you, our board, and as elected officials of Pacifica, and I know you have children in our schools or have had children in our schools. And I ask that, that you know how hard we work for your children. And you know how hard, how many extra hours we put in, exceeding our contract. And I'm just asking if this is the way that you want to treat your teachers. I know that with my teachers, I always wanted to give them a gift, not a pay cut. So I know the district is a business, and I know costs need to be cut. I think there's probably another line item that we could look at. And I just have one more sentence. I'm sure, okay, otherwise, this is the key one, our outstanding teachers won't be able to afford to teach in Pacifica.
Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael Bobrovich. I'm a special ed teacher right over there in Valamar. I'm only the third speaker, and both of them said everything I was going to. So I did want to start by kind of asking you a question or two. I don't expect you to answer me now, but I am, and so this is my 6th year of teaching, 24 years in business. I understand this is kind of a business, but it's very much not kind of a business. I don't have a quarterly number to make, and I'm not going to graduate a bunch of 7th graders early to make my numbers for the year. So we don't do that kind of thing. The kids are not products. So I'm wondering why that approach doesn't extend to us. Question. I'm also wondering, and let me be really frank, who's really behind all this? Is it you? Is it the lawyer? Is it town council? Because it doesn't feel like Pacifica to me, and I've only been here 5 years and I don't even live here yet. So I'm wondering about that. And then my next question is, and they've already touched on that, why don't you use the benefits to cherry pick good teachers from other districts? This is an incredible tool that lets you differentiate. What is the reputation of Pacifica School? They have great teachers. Who wants to move to districts that have great teachers? I live in unincorporated Menlo Park, where my ridiculously small house is worth way too much money because of the school that's across the street from me where my kids went. I think you're missing a huge, huge opportunity here. And then if I could close on one final cruel fiscal note, if I understood the difference in terms of what I have to pay to stay at Blue Cross, it's somewhere between $800 and $1,200 a month. I'm in year 5 here in Pacifica. I'm all the way over on the right side of the column. You can look me up. What do I make? $53,000, $51,000 a year? That math don't work. So the final thing, do I have my 30 seconds yet? The final thing I would say is, here's a much larger and I think difficult challenge. This is not about you guys and us guys. This is about why it is everybody in the education business in the state of California is now working together to create competition among the insurance companies or to self-insure and say, hi, we got a couple million folks here, it better get cheaper now. Kind of sort of like CalPERS does. Thanks for your time and attention.
John? And then Tony, and then Gina Arguello, and then Megan Ellsburn. Hi, Don.
Hi. My name is Don Potter, and I teach 7th and 8th grade math at Cabrillo School. I'm also a father of 3 children who attend Cabrillo School and a lifelong resident of Pacifica. I'm in my 20th year of teaching and have seen many changes in both the city and the school district. The one constant has been the hard work and dedication of the teachers that have made education in Pacifica so effective. As a student at Pedro Valley and later Cabrillo and Terra Nova, I have fond memories of my teachers, some of whom are still teaching today. As in the past, we are now faced with a cut to employees' compensation, this time as a proposed cap to our health benefits. It's not the first time we've had to fight for basic needs. In 1979, Terra Nova went on strike for 3 months over wages and benefits. In 1987, Laguna Salada School District teachers went on strike for 10 days to fight for teacher salaries and benefits. Again, in 2008, during the economic downturn, Pacifica teachers were faced with no pay furlough days, larger class sizes, and the elimination of cost of living raises. Throughout these hardships, teachers and schools have continued to improve. We've been able to retain teachers, and Pacifica School District students are now doing better than other comparable students in the county. We are here tonight to stand in solidarity against the cut in our health benefits. The school district wants to cap our health benefits, which will not only diminish our total compensation and health care coverage, but will also affect retirees who work for lower salaries their entire career and were promised health care benefits. This community has always supported teachers in their hard work. Bond measures have been passed, money has been raised, volunteers have given their time to ensure the very best for our schools. Isn't it in our best interest to protect our teachers with health benefits and a livable wage? Isn't it our job as a community to protect our retirees with benefits that we promise them after a long career in our schools? And isn't our goal as a district and a community to attract and retain teachers who will stay with us and become a part of our community? Please reconsider reducing our compensation and capping our health benefits. Thank you.
Tony?
Yes, hello. Good evening. My name is Tony Hartman. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Ortega School, and this is my 11th year in the district. I too would like to express my concerns about the district's recent offer to our union. I'm going to echo some of the things I've already heard. Back in 2008, Measure N was passed. The district promoted the measure by saying that the money would be used, quote unquote, to retain and attract high-quality teachers. We assumed that this meant a raise for us, and we worked hard for its passage. No raise came. We felt misled, but sucked it up and didn't complain. When the district was having financial issues a few years ago, we accepted lower pay through furlough days, as well as higher class sizes, again without complaining. Now with the latest district proposal, those of us not on Kaiser are looking at an actual decrease in total compensation starting in 2015, with exposure to potentially massive decreases in the years to come. As for the specifics of the district's proposal, I'm not interested in a one-time increase. I want all increases to go on the salary schedule, and I want at least a 3-year contract so that I can focus on my teaching and my family. Especially troubling is that the salary schedule increase in 2015 is based on savings of benefits. First of all, if the numbers are true, I would in reality have no raise or actually go negative. This is based on the district's numbers in the proposal, combined with the fact that I would be paying 4.25% of my salary towards the Anthem Blue Cross plan my wife and I have. If we were on the Blue Shield Access plan, I would be paying 8% of my salary, so this would leave me with 4% less take-home pay than I have right now. But after the Measure N experience, I now have to question whether the district can be trusted to do what they say they will do. So these nebulous offers of future salary increases don't interest me either. Since most negotiations focus on percent contribution paid by the employee, let's look at that. In my case, the district is asking me to go from 0 to pay 13.7% of the cost of my benefits. Teachers on Blue Shield Access Plan would be paying a whopping 23% of the cost of their benefits. This is for the next year only. By limiting the district's premium increase to 1% annually, us teachers will be exposed to potentially enormous increases in the years to come. Please ask yourselves, would you agree to such a proposal? One that's pretending to offer a 4% increase this year, but that actually takes teachers negative in home pay? Would you like to be forced into the Kaiser plan? Because if you're a teacher in Pacifica, that's what's going to happen because you won't be able to afford anything else. Pacifica is one of the lowest paying districts in the Bay Area. This has been largely offset by great benefits. Now the district is trying to make us pay a significant portion of the benefits without a significant increase in salary. I love teaching here in Pacifica, but it doesn't mean that I will roll over and take a significant decrease in compensation and quality of health care without a fight. Thank you for your time.
Gina Arguello?
Hi, my name is Gina Arguello, and I'm in my 10th year of teaching 4th grade at Ortega. I'm a third generation Pacifican, and I knew that when I started teaching that I wanted to stay here. I never questioned that I would stay in this area, though I knew I would probably have to move over the hill to afford it. 10 years in, and I'm now faced with a harsh reality. The building I've lived in for 7 years was sold, and I've been given 60 days to move. Many rental properties require that your monthly income be 3 times the cost of rent. I don't even make double. Excuse me. So as a professional with 9 years experience and a master's degree, I can't afford to live on my own. I knew I would not become rich by teaching the future citizens of this country, but I did have the belief that I would be able to pay rent and maybe one day buy a home and start a family. The Pacifica School District has given me a lot. I've received thousands of hours of professional development and have helped me become the highly qualified teacher that I am. I'm the math lead for Ortega and have worked with the math committee for 9 years. I helped adopt the current math curriculum, and I'll help adopt the next one. I've served on the report card committee for the school district and have served as a master teacher. I hear that the district has made it a major goal to attract and retain teachers like me. Unfortunately, it's difficult to be attracted to low pay and high cost of living. Fortunately, I will be able to take your investment with me to my next teaching job in another district. Over the last few years, we as teachers have agreed to take furlough days, had to work with increased class sizes, and had new expensive education programs implemented against our better judgment. We've also given up our prep periods despite this being a contracted necessity. Before this year, we were working without a pay increase for 7 years. We've cooperated with the school district when times were tough. Now the district is in a much better place, and it hasn't given back what we lost. Yet you are asking us to give up one more thing by capping our health care. We understand that health care costs have risen, but so has our cost of living, and our pay is badly out of pace. I've heard that the board would really like to have predictability when it comes to health care costs. Well, I would really like predictability when it comes to my rent, groceries, and gas. Here's how I see it. The district is more concerned with containing costs than giving a decent wage. The teachers were willing to go along with sacrifices when the district was in a bind, but the district is not willing to return the favor. Teachers simply cannot make ends meet with the current package, and we're being asked to make more cuts. If I can't afford rent, how can we afford more cuts? Thank you.
My name is Megan Ellsworth, and this is my 13th year with the district. I support my union and the point we are trying to make here tonight, and the disappointment that we share with the threat of the loss of our current health care package. I'm more nervous right now than I am on back to school night, sorry. When the state introduced the new local control funding formula, our district worked tirelessly on developing our LCAP, which is required to identify annual goals, specific actions, and measure progress. As a member of one of the many committees that developed the goals for our LCAP, I would like to remind the board of the number one goal: recruiting and retaining highly qualified teachers and educational support staff. Stakeholders from throughout the district and community were gathered together in various subgroups to create this plan. It's curious that the number one goal of all these groups highlighted recruiting and retaining staff, yet here we are tonight, 2 months after that plan was approved, and the district is quickly making moves to do everything but attract and retain our staff. It seems this board is now preparing to leave an interesting legacy. We've had previous boards take. They've taken prep time, they've taken class size, they've taken school days. The teachers always agreed in good faith that as times improved, we expected to see some returns. It seems times have improved, but those returns aren't coming. Now this board is willing to take, not just from the classroom and instruction, but from the pockets of our teachers. I consider myself to have a decent sense of different funding sources for different expenditures, and I know there is this bucket and that bucket, but it's still bewildering to see so much money flying out of this district. Last night I went through and highlighted some of the more curious expenditures over the past year. Nearly $200,000, it seems, has been spent on Teachers College, $170,000 for an online math program. Both of these programs lacked overwhelming teacher support. Even on tonight's agenda, there is something that appears to be a possible shifting around of the district office and adding new positions to the DO. The teachers continue to work endless hours to meet the district's vision for Common Core, yet the district offers in return that we cap our benefits for a low increase to our salary that will eventually be consumed by rising benefit costs. With all that has been taken from the classroom and instruction, the teachers have never taken from the students. Our students continue to excel. This is evidence of how hard PSD teachers are working to do the best for their students. We've protected the students from the cuts. Now it's your turn to protect us.
I'm Joanne Frediani, second grade teacher at Sunset Ridge. I'm in my 12th year of teaching, and I'm pretty nervous too. But I'm really proud to be a part of a group that can speak so eloquently about things I care a lot about. I just have 2 points to make, and they've already been made, so I'll just go for it. I've sent some letters to the board, and you've probably read what I've said, but I just don't understand the timing of this proposal. You're talking about cutting more benefits at a time when funding from the state has increased. You're talking about taking something away from us when you're actually spending more. We're, as people have said, we're spending more for trainings from Teachers College, training in math from SVMI, we're buying computer math programs, and we're contemplating putting a chunk of money in reserve. I just don't really understand how the district can, justify making those kinds of expenditures and then talking about taking more from the teachers. And yet, in addition, teaching conditions have not returned to the pre-recession conditions. I'm wondering, when will the classrooms go back to 20 students in the elementary grades? When will teachers get back the prep periods that they lost during those pre-recession days? So there's more money, and yet things aren't going back to the way they were. So I just don't understand that. And as many people have said already, that, the one thing that Pacifica District wants to do is attract qualified teachers. And I always felt like a bit of a second-class citizen when I compared my salary to the schedule in the surrounding districts. But the one thing that made me feel a little bit comforted was that, we had a really good health benefit package. And so taking that away, it's not going to make anybody feel too good. And the last thought I'd like to leave you with is just to think, is this cap on healthcare the legacy you want to leave behind? Thank you.
Katie, and then Virginia, and then Cynthia Skinner, and then Keone.
Hi, Board. Nice to see all of you again, because I haven't seen you for a while, so that makes me feel. I'm going to say things that people have already said too, but I'm nervous, and so I'm going to be an automatic pilot and just read what's on the paper. Teachers in this district are hardworking and dedicated, as evidenced by our student achievement and consistently high test scores. We were part of the team when money was short, foregoing raises, accepting higher class sizes, furlough days, and decreased prep periods. In spite of economic difficulties, we continue to provide our students with continual growth toward their educational goals. Our common goal has always been giving our best to make the district the best. We are practicing professionals who continually attend trainings to improve our practice and profession, and our salaries have not reflected this for quite some time. We attend professional development courses, yet are not treated like professionals. Typically, professionals who work diligently with measurable standards of success are recognized as valuable and commended with both words and commensurate salaries. If we want to keep to the high standards and achievements this school district has worked so hard to maintain, in spite of difficult economic challenges, we need to start with motivating and appropriately compensating our professional teachers. So it is really hard to understand why we are being asked to give back part of our salaries in the form of health benefits. It is also absurd that we are expected to believe that we will be compensated in a balanced way for this change. If most teachers are covered by Blue Shield, why is the cap configured toward Kaiser coverage? If our compensation is in fact staying the same, why go to the trouble to change it? There would be no reason for the district to transact this plan. In spite of how these changes would affect the current staff, ultimately it will affect the district as a whole. The qualified individuals the district wishes to attract will not be willing to accept a smaller salary with robust health benefits because that situation will no longer exist. Our salary schedule will be close to the bottom, not attractive to potential staff, and demoralizing and unfair to the current staff. Throughout the district, we have many young families with new babies, and more on the way, especially at my school. They depend on this insurance now and will depend on it even more in the future. Many of our teachers are Pacifica residents and members of our community. Some teachers have taken positions in the district and stayed with the district because of our benefits. We should be proud of the fact that we have continued to support these members of our community with fair health coverage. I ask you to think carefully about how this plan affects the individuals who dedicate so much of themselves to Pacifica's school, community, and their students. Is this a fair plan? Is it respectful? Does this plan help accomplish the goals and standards we want to set for our district and community?
Hey, hi. School board members, fellow colleagues, my name is Virginia Shapaniak. I'm a 4-5 teacher at Ocean Shore School, 36-year resident of Pacifica. I chose to teach in Pacifica, although the PSD salary scale was and is lower than the professional standard in surrounding districts. The PSD was attractive to me because of the caliber of dedicated teachers it employed and the quality health care coverage it offered. Health care is a basic need, and it was the best to be found, compensating for the lower salary. I understand what the PSD is offering through negotiations, and I feel it is both divisive and shameful. LSEA members have fought long and hard to retain the benefits we currently have and deserve because we care deeply about them. Our families depend on them. We have long established relationships with healthcare providers of our choosing. There is never a reason to accept less than our current benefits because we are already not paid commensurately for our time and expertise. Measured by other professional standards, the institution of education is inherently abusive towards its employees. What other professionals would do so much for so little? Teachers work long, hard days that extend into evenings and weekends. As advocates for children, we are on call 24/7. Our workday is not over when the children are dismissed. Being dedicated, conscientious, hardworking, flexible, and moral are prerequisites to the profession, and the system takes advantage of this. We step up to the ever-increasing and changing demands of education. We train, retrain, produce, invent, develop, design, and implement ongoing to do the best job we can with what we have to teach children and their families. Teaching can run you into the ground physically, and yet you would ask us to accept a health plan we don't want and a voluntary reduction in our services. Honestly, how would you respond if these contract changes were offered to you? The reported #1 goal of the PSD is to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers and educational staff. How are you going to do this, offering an overall diminished salary and reduction of benefits? We stand before you as highly qualified, dedicated teachers. We implore you to acknowledge our worth and show your humanity. Your current proposal is disrespectful and undervalues the enormity and increasing complexity of our jobs. Growth over time. Sometimes the fruit of our labor takes years to manifest. We acknowledge our students' efforts and ability and their potential. At every school site, teachers work as a team in the spirit of cooperation, collaboration, and community to support one another in a common goal. We are in it for the long haul. We stand and deliver every day for our students, and we stand up today for our health care we deserve. Respected, we all thrive. Diminished in body, mind, or spirit, we all pay the price as a community. In good faith, we have taken furlough days, taught larger classes, and gone without prep periods in order to support district solvency. You have hired new positions, purchased new programs, and paid for expensive trainings, but it is the teacher who has the greatest influence on the educational outcome of a student. Do and offer nothing less than is in both your ability and your conscience to do. What will your legacy be? Thank you.
Cynthia coming up, and then Kiyomi, and then Doreen Murphy, and then the last part I have is the LSEA negotiating team.
Being towards the end is a benefit because I've been able to cut out about 2.5 minutes. I really don't know too much about union stuff. I missed the only strike of this district by one summer. But I was Harry Bridges' daughter's roommate back in the 70s. So that counts, right? Okay. All right, so I found these. The CTA publication, and Fresno and King City's on 101, they've had both increases, they've had settlements. June 2014, 6.2% raise in Fresno this year. King City, I forgot to highlight this. I didn't do this at the district, I did it at FedEx, and it was so expensive. I didn't do it in color, but raises, this is very SF, raises of 17% over 4 years, comma, fully paid family health coverage, June of this year. Now, King City, let's go. Okay, rents in Fresno with a pool. $700 to $975 a month, 1 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 2 baths. King City, a little higher, it's on 101, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, $1,100. Ready for Pacifica? Okay, if you want to go down there on the eroding cliffs, 1 bedroom, $3,049 to $4,421, rent.com. If you want to live above Sunset Ridge, there's a bargain, $2,182 a month. We've lost some teachers because of the rents. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm here tonight to express my support in maintaining our current health benefits and my lack of support of capping our benefits. My husband and I are both teachers and have 3 very active and accident-prone children. When I transferred into this district, I knew what my salary expectations were. Nothing much to brag about. Actually, I took an $11,000 pay cut coming into this school district. However, I was enticed and told that what we lacked in salary compensation was offset by our health benefits package. With a growing family at that time, this was satisfying. On dual teacher salaries, I may not be able to have a large college fund for my children or be able to purchase a home. I am relieved, however, to know that the health coverage of my family and myself is secured, and for all the years of service I put in will be worth the security of my health coverage for years into my retirement, just as we were promised when we were hired. Because of my health benefits, I have a sense of relief and security. My point, I do not want my health benefits capped. Now I'd like to take a reference to the book, The Giving Tree, which many of us know. The words giving, generous, and understanding are common themes in the story and can describe most of us in the profession of teaching. And not long ago, our district was facing a budget crisis, as many of us speakers have mentioned, and really had to crunch numbers. We teachers, just like the tree, understood the numbers and had compassion toward the situation. We agreed to give up some pay for numerous furlough days. The boy gave apples to make money. We sacrificed our prep periods. The tree gave its branches to the boy to build a house. We agreed to have more students in our classroom. The tree gave its trunk for the boy to sail away and be happy. And the giving tree just kept on giving. So once again, through our understanding and compassion of the matter of the budget crisis, we generously made sacrifices. However, just because we are generous and understanding professionals doesn't mean you can take advantage of us to be made into a stump, just to be sat on, as in the end of the book. When the word got out that the notion of capping our benefits was seriously up for discussion, the giving tree was done giving. We do not support this act of yet another form of giving. Therefore, we do not support a cap on our benefits. To conclude, I want to refresh your memories board on how we teachers are just so fantastic in the classroom and outside of the classroom and deserve to maintain our fantastic health benefits. We don't just read a book of famous Americans. We become the person in our wax museum or our famous American breakfast. We don't just read a history textbook about California history. We perform Gold Rush to display our thorough knowledge. And I can go on and on. My point is that we don't put a cap on our teaching ability, so once again, don't put a cap on our benefits.
And then the LSEA negotiating team, and that would be my last card.
Hi, my name is Doreen Cummins Murphy, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm the kindergarten first grade combination teacher at Valleymar School. I'm a native Pacifican. My husband and I went through the Pacifica School District. My two boys are going through the Pacifica School District. I'm very blessed to be a part of this community. Due to volunteering in the classroom, I gave up my human resources career, actually in benefits, to become a teacher. And I am not in teaching for the salary. I make as much now as I did when I graduated from college 20 years ago and began my human resources career. I do this for the love of my students. My kinders wrote their first sentence today, and you should have seen how proud they were. I see a flag for Constitution Day. I don't make a lot of money, but I spend half my salary donating items back to my classroom. I hide my credit card bills because my husband knows that I've been shopping. One of the benefits of being in this district is your comprehensive benefit package. My son requires a specialist at UCSF. Because of the Anthem Blue Cross PPO option, I can see the best urologist in the entire country. UCSF is rated one of the top 10 hospitals in the United States. It's 40 minutes from here. If you limit us to Kaiser, I won't have that option. So what I'm saying to you is we care for our students 24/7. We never stop thinking about them. And I need you to care for our families by continuing to offer choice and continuing to offer a comprehensive benefit package.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Harris, and I'm a 4th and 5th grade teacher at Ocean Shore School. And Patty McNally and I are co-chairs with our wonderful LSEA bargaining team. We wanted to report out to you, the board, as we had said at the negotiating table, we were going to take your offer and we were going to shop it around and discuss and explain its ins and outs with our members. We wanted to sense the pulse of the district and see where people were feeling with this offer. And I think we came away with that with two very strong feelings. The first one is the tremendous unity of our teachers and their resolve in maintaining health care. We understand that your offer does include full family coverage at Kaiser. And we have also learned that our members want choice. We've also learned that people feel that this offer does not give them a future that is increasing their total compensation package. As a matter of fact, it's decreasing our total compensation as a group. I feel that, and I think our group would agree that as we went to each of the 6 schools, the opinion of this offer was very unified and it was negative. People felt that it was distasteful, that we would take the savings from healthcare costs and put it towards our own healthcare that would effectively put one member paying for the raise of another, and we found that quite distasteful, which I think says something about the unity of our membership. We also felt that a 1% raise and a 3% off salary benefit was not something that is worth giving up the cap and the choice that we would be doing. In addition to that, I would like to say that we've really noticed a sense that teachers in this district are hitting a wall. We have been working extremely hard. We've given up our summers. Yes. We've given up our time outside of school. We've given up time with our families in order to meet the vision of this district. And in doing so, we expect to be met with something that would warrant that respect, the respect that we deserve for what we've done for this district. I feel like this is a very unified feeling. I feel like people feel at this point that we're being disrespected. We've been working hard. We still haven't recovered what we've gotten and what we gave up willingly to keep this district solvent during the economic downturn. We hope very much as a team to continue with the IBB process. We hope very much to continue and not go to impasse. We really think that there's work to be done as far as further options. And we felt, I think, at the table that there was a line being drawn in the sand as far as the district and the board saying, first of all, that they were going to put money towards reserve and spend quite a deal of money, add new district office jobs and administrative jobs, and then take that money off the table and then offer us something that we don't find adequate or really respectful for the amount of work that we've done. We really hope that when we meet on the 30th that we will be able to come to some kind of agreement or at least move forward, and really ask that you guys also come up with some options so that we have something to talk about on the 30th and don't end up at impasse. Anything else?
Good. Thank you, John.
Thank you very, very much.
All right.
Thank you. We appreciate very much the efforts of the individual employees who've taken the time to reach out to board members to express their thoughts on the important issues being negotiated between the district and LSEA. We respect the negotiations process and are thankful that it has been conducted in a constructive and collaborative manner by the district and the association bargaining teams. The board has fully authorized and directed the negotiating team to negotiate on our behalf. So any agreement, when it is reached, will occur through the discussions at the bargaining table between the delegated representatives for both LSEA and the district. We remain confident that the parties will craft mutually acceptable solutions by continuing to bargain in good faith. Thank you for coming this evening. We will move on to correspondence. Board Superintendent Communications. Does anybody want to start?
No, hang on.
Got to reorient here? Okay, Matt.
Why don't you take a 2-minute
2-minute break. Okay, we'll take a 2-minute break. We have Board Superintendent Communications. Matt, you want to start?
Sure. Like, I was at the open houses at Ortega and Belmar. Let's move this.
Okay. Oh yeah, let's move this along. That's a good idea. Richard. Oh, Andrew.
Let's see, Sunset Ridge Barbecue on Saturday. Well attended. The diversity leadership group at Ocean Shore School. A lot of work, good work done there. Back to school night at Ocean Shore and Cabrillo. So, made it around the block.
Richard?
So, I went to the joint articulation meeting, of course our work study. I did the back to school night at IBL, and then together with our new director of PSD, whom we'll be meeting shortly, did kind of a speed dating tour of all the schools. Started at the north end and stopped and met with every principal, and had a very productive morning. Got to talk with all of them, so that went really well. I also want to take a minute to announce that I will be joining a countywide commission. So as of next week, I will be sworn in as a commissioner at the inaugural meeting of the brand new San Mateo LGBT Commission, which is a brand new commission of its type in the state, and I'm very excited about kind of getting it off the ground and getting it some direction.
Eric?
Back to school at Ocean Shore and LMEC this morning. I got to go to the PSD party at the Surf Spot. That was a good time. Thank you for the invitation. And just a quick on the articulation meeting that Richard mentioned. The group is really coming together. It's 2 members of the City Council, Mike O'Neill and Len Stone, the City Manager. It's 2 members of Jefferson, the Superintendent, Kalima and Jeannie Matiziak, and 2 members of the Water District, and the directors of each. And it's really starting to gel some conversations about how we can share resources and how we can work together. And down the road, there'll be things that the superintendent will be bringing back, but I think there's really a different tenor of tone of recognizing that, there's 4 public agencies that work in Pacifica. Of course, Jefferson works in, over the hill as well, but really a spirit of cooperation and understanding that, with resources shrinking, that there really are. It is a time to look at some different ways of doing business and sharing resources and stuff. So it's really encouraging. As somebody who sat up here many years ago and tried to do that and wasn't able to because the time was wrong, it's kind of gratifying to see that there's a willingness now on other agencies to realize that we really do have to share resources. So it's actually pretty exciting, and I'm hoping to stay on that particular committee come January.
Well, I was able to attend the Valamar Back to School Night, which was wonderful, and we were all at a work study last week. Yes, so quickly does this go by. And we have just Fun Fest coming up, which is on the 29th, and PSV will be having a Think Bridge tent there. What? 28th, sorry, 28th. Oh, 28th. Fog Fest, Fun Fest, but anyway, so come on out and support us.
We've also, this week, we will be completing, or we completed today, our SBMI training. So all the teachers who did not attend over the summer were able to get the 3 days training during this week with substitute teachers. And we've been very fortunate. Jefferson Union High School District provided their facility, and it appeared to go very well. Because our teachers had already started their first unit, they did get an opportunity to start looking at Unit 2 of the transitional units from SVMI. And we're looking forward to our October 13th PD Day, which would be all of the North County Math Collaborative who will be trained with SVMI as well. So we continue to move forward on that, and our curriculum specialists in humanities are bringing on board the new teachers who haven't had the reading workshop training, and then those teachers who did not receive the writing workshop training will again be given that opportunity to be trained over a substitute process. So we're looking forward to everybody being on the same page. And again, we do thank the teachers for their professionalism and their dedication in really providing a strong educational program for our students.
Okay, so, sorry. So we have two presentations tonight. Thank you to our presenters for waiting. It was not quite anticipated that we have so much communications, but glad that we heard from our teachers. The first one is Pacifica School Volunteers.
So I have the pleasure of presenting Kathy, who is our new director for Pacifica School Volunteers. She'll be doing a presentation. We truly appreciate her attendance to Welcome to Pacifica School District for our new families. We really can't do the work without their support. They make such a difference in those classrooms every day. And I think the children look forward to them, to the volunteers, as do the teachers. So with that, thank you.
Could you update the mic on the podium? It's for the TV.
Yeah.
That's
so,
the TV.
So the TV can hear you.
Great, thank you. This is really an exciting time for me to present to the board. This is probably why I wore blue today, I guess. What a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. I'm very animated. But I'll make my presentation fairly quick. Some of you on the board are either on our board or supporters or volunteers, and I've seen several of you, Eric and Andrea, at our events as well. Pacifica School Volunteers has been operating since 1997, as you know, and we recruit, train, and place adult volunteers in the schools as well as high school students, and they work in the middle school as well as the elementary schools, as well as the homework centers, the STEM program, and the summer camps in the district. And our weekly volunteers often work in the same classroom 1 or 2 hours a week, but some volunteers work as many as 5 days a week, like Melinda Pedersen over at Ortega. And Mark Lorenzen was just actually laughing when we visited there on Friday, that even though they only have 11 on the board for adult volunteers at the school, some of the volunteers are going there every day. Melinda Pedersen, Ruth Matz, Rudy Benton are very much an integral part of the teaching program at Ortega. Most adult volunteers work with children one-on-one and in small groups to practice reading and math skills. And that's where we target most of our grant writing for. We target the K to 3rd grade literacy and math literacy. We also place volunteers in art, science, music, drama, and physical education. Many of our volunteers work at Sunset Ridge. We have about 38 volunteers up at Sunset. Ortega, we have 11. And then under 10 at Cabrillo, Valamar, Ocean Shore, Abiel, and even a couple at the LMEC, Endemar Education Facility. The high school volunteers, we have them preparing projects in the classroom and supporting the teachers. And they also work in after-school and homework centers. We have community service requirement at Oceana High School, and so approximately 85 high school students from Oceana come to to help out in our community, as well as about 15 from Terra Nova. And we also arrange for members of the community to do mentor and evaluate the Oceana Senior exhibits. Oh, these are all the, sorry, I didn't really know that that was going to. There's one of our enthusiastic volunteers. Some of the events that we participate in are either initiated by us or involve us in education and school-related programs, and we are also at work in the community to connect with Pacifica's local community, for example, with the Lit Wave that we have. We also, as was mentioned, we will be participating in Fog Fest, and we also do the Earth Day Echo Fest. We have 2 tents there. Pacifica School Volunteers has a current operating budget of about $130,000. And as part of our initiative to have an earned income stream, we began ThinkBridge Summer Camp about 4 years ago. We have now about 64 campers, 4 full-time instructors, 2 to 5 adult volunteers, and approximately 20 or 25 high school volunteers that work in the summer program. And it runs mid-June to mid-July. Pacifica School Volunteers, oh, I like how there was an exclamation point after Pacifica. Wow.
Very, very.
Well, that's all through the whole slide. Great. I hope that was yours, Sandy, not mine. Okay. As you know, that we're a local nonprofit organization, and we're supported by generous donations from the community members, residents of the community, as well as organizations such as the Rotary Club and St. Andrew's Presbyterian, and companies such as Blaley Elevator. And PSV is also supported. We get a good chunk of funding from the Woodlawn Foundation, Cisco Systems, Sam Matza Foundation, also Fleshhiker and Atkinson, and then smaller numbers from the less than 10,000 from J.H. Robbins, First National Bank, Wells Fargo, and Safeway, and Target. If you are interested in a little bit more information about our programs, and if you would like to volunteer with us, please reach us at pacificaschoolvolunteers.org or call 650-355-9432. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention also, in having gone with you to all the schools and talked with the principals, that one of the discussions that we had that day was the concept of kind of one and done. And we know that there are a lot of people out there who can't necessarily commit to being there week after week after week, but they might be able to come in and do a particular day for a science fair or a math fair, or whatever is going on. So we want to make sure to reach out to those people as well, that if you just have a day, that there might be something going on where we can kind of plug you into as well. You don't need to, although we love people who can make long-term commitments, you don't necessarily need to.
And that's something I'd like to develop to do on our website. There's this organization in San Francisco called One Brick, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. One Brick is also a kind of organization where you can just sign up for a single event and then go to that event, and then your volunteer service is complete at that point. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next presentation is our organizational efficiency review.
Okay, I'll do an introduction for this item. So, as we've discussed, over the last 10 years, the district has been making severe budget cuts, due to the budget crisis. And many of the budget cuts were in the classroom, and there were also budget cuts at the district office level. Several positions in both the business services and the human resources department have been cut over the last years. For example, the receptionist was eliminated, the part-time payroll clerk, the controller position, the repo graphics clerk, the food service director, the supervisor of operations, and the personnel director, and also a classified personnel specialist. So with the last, in addition, with the last district reorganization in 2013, the business office no longer has an administrative assistant. There's no clerical support for the business office. So given that, we have discussed over the last several budget study sessions and in developing the budget this past year, whether or not there's a position that could be added to the district office. And in order to do that in a thoughtful manner, staff recommended that we do an organizational review, and we contracted with school services to conduct this study for us, and they worked on it in near the end of last school year and through the summer. And now we have Kathleen O'Sullivan Spencer, who is the director in Management Consulting Services for School Services, and she's here to give a presentation on the results of their work.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My colleague Lewis Wiley, who conducted the study with me, unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. He had a scheduling conflict. So I will do my best to represent him as well. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to present the findings of our report. And I know that you have a long agenda tonight, and so I will try to keep my presentation brief to leave time for questions from the board. I also know you have a copy of our comprehensive report available. I believe it's posted to the website under the agenda. And I know the board will have copies. I also understand that there's more work to be done with this. So there will be, I believe, a study session and work on this report. So don't feel that my presentation is the only dose that you'll ever get. So, and so I wanted to take this moment just to also thank your district office staff and the school site administrators and staff that we interviewed and spent some time with when we were here conducting interviews at the end of the school year last year. Unintentionally, sometimes when we come in to do these studies, it creates some additional work for staff because they need to take time out of their busy days to meet with us during the interview process and also prepare documentation or gather materials that we ask for. And everyone was just very welcoming, open, honest, and it's, you have a great staff here in the district office and in the sites that we met, and we just so appreciated their cooperation and support in the project. So I'd like to start just briefly talking a little bit about what we did. So we conducted an organizational study of the Business Services and Human Resources divisions. And really when we do that, we're looking at your organizational structure as a whole. And we're evaluating that organizational structure. And in this case, it was for Business Services and Human Resources. It wasn't the entire district office. It was targeted to both of those divisions. And I'm going to move quickly a little bit through this. When we look at the purpose and the focus of an organizational review, we are looking to determine if your organizational structure has the right number of positions and the right positions to be able to operate efficiently and effectively. Something we say at School Services, sorry, am I on the right slide? Okay. That we say at School Services is we look at the places, not the faces. So when we come in to do our organizational review, we are not evaluating whether Sally J has is conducting her job in the appropriate way. We're not evaluating her job performance. We're looking to see, does that account clerk fit with the organizational structure? Is that really what's needed to be able to support the goals and the direction of the district? And so when we come in to do that, as I mentioned briefly earlier, we conducted interviews with over 30 district office and school site personnel to evaluate from their perspective what's working well, what's not, where is there really a need, and what maybe could be done differently. I think the best insight often comes from the ground. We have people that are working very hard and they've been in their jobs for a long time and they've thought long and hard about what could be done to make things better. So we always spend a good deal of time with your district staff. We also review relevant documentation including job descriptions, organizational charts, and anything else that falls under the purview of the study. Now on this next slide I've just provided for your reference some of the key questions that we ask when we do these organizational studies. This is also in the report that's provided. Now before I move on to talk in detail about business services and human resources, I do just want to elaborate a little bit with what Josie kind of opened the presentation with. The statement that the district really has reduced positions or not filled vacancies for a number of years. We know that across the state with the economic recession, there were significant devastating cuts to education funding. And it was, I think, felt more deeply in smaller districts like Pacifica. In Pacifica and other districts of your size, you often have staff that are wearing two hats already.
And they were wearing those 2 hats before the recession hit. When the recession hit, positions weren't filled when people left, or positions were eliminated. Now you have people wearing 3 or 4 hats. And it really does stress the organizational structure and everyone's ability to be able to do their job effectively, to be able to support the district, its staff, and of course, most importantly, its students. And so we'll talk a little bit about what we saw here in the Business Services Division. We'll talk about the 3 sort of departments under the division: fiscal services or business services, child nutrition, maintenance, operations, and facilities. So I think overall, again, we haven't seen that the level of staffing in business services has increased much over the last 8 years or so. We've seen, though, a shift of positions, moving some people around into different positions, trying to change the organizational structure, but not increasing the number of staff. We did, over a year ago, your facilities manager, that was the existing facilities manager, did resign and is no longer in the district. That position was vacant for a long time and was filled by existing staff that was shuffled around and created additional vacancies in the maintenance, operations, and facilities department. Now, your district's chief business official, or your CBO, really should be a strategic leadership position in your district. But what we found when we were doing our interviews and field work is that your CBO has had to direct her talents and her time elsewhere to become almost a working manager in some capacities due to those vacancies in your business services division in those various departments, not able to focus on that leadership level position. The CBO, as was mentioned earlier, and the Business Services Department also does not have a dedicated clerical support position. And an area that we see in smaller districts as being, to be frank, a little bit of a liability, is that we don't see that the way your district's fiscal services department is currently structured, that you have that second tier of support for your CBO. We see in smaller districts all the time that you have a very competent and capable CBO and very competent and capable technical staff under that CBO, but there's no intermediate level support for your CBO. Someone like an accountant or a budget analyst that's a higher level technical position, able to provide support to your CBO. So now I'll talk about our recommendations for the Fiscal Services Division. And again, there are a number of recommendations in the report that I won't cover tonight. I just wanted to highlight some of the critical ones that we can cover today. So we believe that you do need that intermediate level of support in adding an accountant or budget analyst level position that can really be that second set of eyes for your CBO, preparing those county, state, federal reports, helping with budget preparation and presentations, really able to back up those essential duties for your CBO. We also think it's pretty critical for the Business Services and Fiscal Services Division to have clerical support added back. And we know that, as I'm speaking tonight, there will be a number of recommendations. We don't expect or recommend that you do them all at once. We wanted to provide a long-term plan for the district to be able to revisit over time and look at the recommendations and add. We also think that once these changes are made, and even now, that there needs to be more of an emphasis on cross-training and backup assignments for your Fiscal Services Department. It's really critical in smaller districts, especially when you do have staff wearing more than one hat, completing a lot of different functions, that you have good backups in place in case you ever need to access that. Now, as we look at your Child Nutrition Department, your child nutrition department in your district is not unique. You contract out with a provider, Sodexo, to provide food service support and the food preparation. However, your department does have district staff that operate the department. Your food service workers, your regional kitchen manager, those are all district positions. And currently, your child nutrition department does not have a supervisory or managerial position to provide that supervision, evaluation, and direction of work. Those responsibilities right now fall to your CBO. And we don't believe that, in our opinion, that that's the best use of her time. And we don't believe either that it's resulting in the best evaluations for your child nutrition department staff. It's very difficult for a CBO to be out at those school sites every day, seeing the job performance and responsibilities of the child nutrition department staff. And so we would recommend that the district consider adding a child nutrition supervisor to be able to better direct the staff in that department. Now I'll talk a little bit about maintenance, operations, and facilities. I know that since we were here, there have already been some great changes that the district has made in terms of the leadership of the maintenance, operations, and facilities department. And part of our recommendations, we'll cover some of those things, but some of the things that we really saw in your maintenance, operations, and facilities department was the need for a really strong leader. There had been a lot of transition in the department. There are a lot of changes statewide with maintenance and operations. With the new local control funding formula, we don't have those allocated pots of money any longer for maintenance and operations, and so it becomes very critical that you have a strong leader in your maintenance, operations, and facilities department to be able to advocate for the needs of the department. Everyone is competing for the same pot of money now under LCFF, and so we think it's really critical that districts have strong leadership in that area. Currently, when we were here in the district, the interim facilities manager was overseeing the grounds and maintenance staff with limited supervision of the custodial staff who were reporting essentially directly to the site administrators. And we heard when we were here some concerns about that reporting structure. Not that the site administrators weren't doing their best, but they are educational leaders of their site. And we found that there were reports from site administrators and staff all across the board that it was difficult to ensure consistent standards were being delivered across the district. So part of our recommendation, which we know the district has already moved forward with, is a director-level management position to oversee maintenance, operations, and facilities. And part of our recommendation to move towards that position is we believe that it really better reflects the span of control and responsibility of that position. And we would also recommend that the district consider centralizing the custodial staff. Bringing the custodial staff under the maintenance, operations, and facilities department could help to provide a more comprehensive and cohesive support for the custodial staff, more consistent direction in terms of cleaning standards across the district, more consistent evaluations. But if this is done, it's very critical that site administrators are still very engaged in this process, because it's very important for site administrators, for good reason, to want to make sure that their sites are clean, that their needs are met, and that they have good input into the evaluations of the staff. One of our recommendations for potentially the future is that over time it may become necessary to add back an operations supervisor to help to oversee the custodial staff. It could be different configurations there, but we do see that there's a potential need for supervision in the night or swing shift positions. Now, as part of the new structure that we've recommended, we also think that the Director of Maintenance Operations should do a few additional things, evaluate the current staffing with some of the recommended formulas that we provided in the report to ensure adequate staffing across all school sites, and also to really develop a very comprehensive preventative maintenance program. You live in a beautiful area, but there are a lot of challenges that come with living by your beautiful ocean, right, in terms of maintaining your facilities. And so developing a good comprehensive preventative maintenance schedule will allow you to maintain your facilities for even longer into the future. So now I'd like to turn to the Human Resources Division. And we have seen, when we were here, we saw that the Human Resources Division has undergone quite a number of changes over the years in terms of the administrative structure, where HR reports, who the administrator is. There's been a lot of tweaking to try and get that right. And so currently, the current structure, the associate superintendent oversees human resources, and the division has two staff positions, your confidential personnel specialist and the personnel assistant, and does not have any dedicated clerical support. And we found that division staff are working very hard. We think there's some issues with limited resources, limited time that really is creating a bit of a bottleneck in the HR department. And so we saw that at times some of the communication to sites or departments was impacted because everyone is so busy. And so in our recommendations for human resources, we really think it's critical that a great comprehensive training program is developed for the Human Resources Division staff to ensure that they're classically trained in employment law and regulations. These change every day. There are new changes coming through every week in bulletins that I get. And it's really critical that your staff is up on all new compliance changes to ensure legal compliance, but also to provide them with professional development. Part of what we see in our recommendations as well is that it's important to develop a career ladder in your district so that you can attract and retain quality employees that see a future for themselves in your district. And providing professional development is one of the ways that you can help enhance that. We also think that in terms of operations of the HR division, having 2 positions at the same level would help facilitate cross-training in an easier fashion and shared responsibility. Currently, your 2 positions have different responsibilities and are different level positions, which makes that cross-training more difficult. We also think in terms of future recommendations, we know that this new structure is relatively new and is still being worked out in terms of the reporting structure. And we think that it could be helpful in the future for a manager level position or a higher level technical position to be added to the HR division to help support your associate superintendent. He has a lot of responsibilities under his umbrella, and being able to delegate some of those day-to-day HR responsibilities and to be able to have a position like that to support the division staff could help him be able to delegate some of that and focus on some of the higher level responsibilities like being chief negotiator and the final human resources authority. Now, I'm almost done, I promise. So we have some just overall recommendations that we thought were important to include, but they don't necessarily 100% lie in HR, but kind of historically you would think of them here, but they really will provide or require some collaboration of the different divisions in your district. We think it's really critical that there's a consistent and rigorous hiring process in your district that's used. And I don't know that this is something that we saw when we were in the district that's happening right now, but we heard recent stories that there were some concerns to ensure that all of the candidates, whether it's a new position, a promotional position in the district, hiring externally or internally, that everyone is evaluated the same way in a rigorous fashion to ensure that your district is attracting, retaining, and hiring the appropriate, well-qualified candidate. And we know that work is being done in this and that you do have a process set up. We would just encourage that this continues. We also saw as part of this that when we were in your district, many of the job descriptions were very out of date, and I'm sure a lot of people are shaking their head. Everybody knows it's a hard thing to keep up with. But we do think it's critical, and we know the district's already working towards updating the job descriptions. When you have out-of-date job descriptions, it makes it very difficult for employees to know what their responsibilities and job duties are, and then it makes it very difficult, on the other hand, for managers and supervisors to be able to hold their employees accountable. And our last recommendation is just developing a cohesive and comprehensive staff development plan for employees in these 2 divisions and probably district-wide as well, one that takes into account the district's goals and mission as well as individual job performance responsibilities. So now I just spend 1 minute or 2 here on this next section. When we do our organizational reviews, we like to also look at comparative staffing data from other similar school districts. And when we identify these comparative groups, we look at similar enrollment as well as similar demographics. And I'm going to put my caveat that I've been using for probably the last 4 years now. Most districts across the state are not staffed the way they want to be, should be, or need to be able to operate in an efficient, effective manner to provide services. And so while we still think this data is helpful, we think that caveat's very important, because though it's a good benchmark to be able to see where your district ranks, it also needs to be acknowledged that many of these districts are much leaner than they need to be, and we saw, especially in business and HR, over the last few years, that those positions really were the highest number that were eliminated and folded into other positions. So when we looked at the departments under the scope of the review as compared to the other comparative districts, we saw that overall your district had slightly fewer staff than the other districts. And we saw this the most in your fiscal services department, where you had the lowest or leanest staffing of all the comparative districts. Child nutrition was more difficult to compare because you contract out for some services, other districts do as well, so it's not an apples to apples comparison. Maintenance and operations, we saw you were about middle of the pack, and human resources showed that you ranked 2 out of 6. However, I will say I was on the phone with superintendents and CBOs from most of the districts in the comparative group that said, we are a mess and don't do what we're doing. We had to eliminate HR. I'm doing certificated, my CBO's doing classified, and we're barely keeping it together. So I just wanted to throw that caution at that point that I don't think that's necessarily reflective of realistic staffing. So with that, we just have some closing thoughts that you can read at your convenience. I'd rather open it up for board questions if there are any. Eric?
I guess my first question, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I just want to make sure, is there anybody who wants to speak public comment? I don't want to eliminate that.
I did have a card that I was going to give, but I was waiting for the presentation.
Okay.
Do I do that now?
Can we go first?
Okay. And then public comment. That's right, I just want to make sure that we follow process.
Well, I guess that's my question. I mean, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think this is, you know, we did all this cutting over the years in a crisis mode, and I think it's really, really important for us to look at where we are and how we need to get to where we need to be in a very thoughtful way, rather than just saying, well, we had a position before and now we're going to fill it, because it's been years since we've had it and there may be other needs. So I really thank you guys for your, and to have somebody from the outside with expertise give us a fresh set of eyes on it, I think is really helpful. So thank you. But I guess my question about questions is, what's our process going to be, so I kind of know where we're going to.
Well, our process generally is what? We have presentation, hear from the public in case there's any comments that we want to consider from them, and then have board discussion.
No, okay, I'm sorry. What I mean is our process for handling this information, you know.
Okay.
Where we're going from here with it will kind of drive how many questions I have tonight. You know, I'd like to see it. I think this is a huge piece for us to wrestle with, you know, and I'd like us to have, I think we need at least a study session, or probably multiple study sessions with the stakeholders in the room to start understanding this better, and then talking about, you know, prioritizing what we might do now, what's next year, what's, you know, how many years will it take to do this, you know. So I think it's going to take considerable discussion around the table, not as an agendized item, but as a study session, and maybe more than that. And if we understand, if we can decide what we're going to do, then it sort of drives the rest of the discussion tonight.
Okay. Was there feeling, I mean, I think this is pretty meaty. So I think to me, it's a work study and structure, but.
Is there a reason we wouldn't have public comment now the way we usually do, and then?
No, I'm all for that. I just wanted to, it's like the questions I have are sort of driven by, if I know we're coming back next month for a study session on it, then.
You'll save some of your questions.
I'll save most of my questions for that.
So that's his question, so yeah.
So so then on future agenda items, you'll discuss that, right, and say, let's schedule a study session?
Right, but I need to know.
So just kind of get a feel if that's what we want to do. Is that good for the?
I mean, I have no objection to a study session. I think, you know, our ability to do more than like an extremely minimal amount of what's in here, in like, you know, obviously we don't have extremely great vision given the way the state budgets, but like as far as I can see, like I don't know how we would do that. I would love to, but I just don't. So we can have it. I'm all for a study session. I just.
Right. Okay.
So one of the things that we may want to consider would be, you know, now that we have had an opportunity to hear from school services, you know, we'll hear the conversation tonight, we'll hear public comments, and then Cabinet can kind of dissect the report, and then have a work study which everyone can attend as well, and come up with some either prioritizations, look at what we currently have and what we think we might be able to do with next steps. But right, clearly we know, and we can't do some of these things. But I think what it does do is it gives us a sense of not wanting to piecemeal things and put things back just because we cut it and we wanted to do it thoughtfully. So I think this gives us some good information to kind of chew on, and then we would come back to you in the form of a work study so we can have a deeper dialogue about it and see what our next steps potentially could be.
Does that help, Eric?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll do public comment and then we'll do board discussion? Okay.
Hi, my name is Sue Beckmeyer, and I'm here representing CSEA. I just wanted to reiterate the statement I made when this item came before the board last spring. I don't remember exactly when it was, that it is the case that most of the positions that have been talked about in this report are within our bargaining unit, and there is initial recommendation that directly affects positions that would be taken out of our bargaining unit. And I am again urging the board and staff to work with labor partners in dissecting, chewing on, figuring out what this all looks like, what the priorities are, where we've come from. And I do agree with the policy of, or the procedure of not just filling positions because they're vacant, but being thoughtful and taking into account the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the individuals who are on staff. Because I am not charged with looking at just the places. I do look at the faces. And we have to keep that in mind as we move forward in every step with this process. Thanks.
Questions?
Yeah, can I ask one?
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Thank you for staying so late too, appreciate that.
So my first question is, as far as the distribution of responsibilities among the people who actually are here, my first question is, like, are you happy with that? That is, we're not talking about, we're talking about, you know, the way that, for instance, like our CBO is also responsible for facilities and also responsible for child nutrition, and the way the associate superintendent is responsible for special ed and negotiations and so forth. Like, are you more or less satisfied with who is with, assuming that we don't have anybody else to give those boxes to, are you happy with the way that those have been?
Right, so I don't believe we had any recommendations of changes to your overall structure components. I think it's a pretty traditional structure you have here with your CBO overseeing child nutrition, maintenance operations and facilities, and obviously fiscal services. And with human resources is one of those tricky ones that is difficult in smaller districts because it's difficult to figure out where it goes, because it probably doesn't make sense here, right, to have an assistant superintendent of HR. You don't have the need or the capacity to need to have that here. So it's always a challenge to figure out where HR belongs. It's pretty common that you see it combined with the educational component of integrated services. But, you know, our concern was just that that's a lot for one person to handle, and though we do think there's great capacity in the individual that you have, that in the long term it may be something that you want to evaluate bringing in some additional support for that position.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, I think that we've heard that, you know, expressed up here, that we're very lucky to have in Ray somebody who already has a lot of human resources experience. So that works out for us. But you know, if you look at the chart, like, we are all a little bit concerned about the vast number of boxes under under him. And we realize how, you know, so we're, again, there's no proposal on the table to fix that immediately, unfortunately, but
sorry, Ray.
but we do want to, you know, like, I think, like, we do want to sort of make that same. If I was gonna say what my biggest, you know, priority on that list would be, I think something in there might feature large.
Any more? Okay, so we'll revisit this in deeper thought at a work study. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thanks. All right. Oh, we're to district business. Okay, so we want to report on opening of school.
Okay, school officially started on Wednesday, August 27th, and currently we have, and give or take a few, because this was written last week, currently we have 3,150 TK to 8th grade students and 15 preschool students, although I was at LMEC today and I know we have 17 since then. Enrolled for a total of 3,168 students. This is up by approximately 22 students from the first day of school, but this is also a decrease of 85 students from last year's opening day attendance of 3,216 students. The good news is we are 100% compliant with that very important Tdap immunization, so I'm very proud to announce that. We've also appreciated the collaboration, I wish I could have said this before they left. LSEA has been very resourceful in making sure that if we need to move to a +1 in any one of our grade levels, and this is specifically to keep siblings together, they have definitely supported and helped the district office in that, and it also allows us to honor the waitlist process, and we appreciate the support and the understanding from our families as we've gone through that waitlist process. Our school buildings were fully cleaned over the summer, as were our grounds for the beginning of the school year. We also had some projects for school safety purposes, specifically the final installation of all the window coverings on every campus, and that was for safety purposes. In conclusion, we also had the great event by PEF, sponsored, called the Welcome to Pacifica School District event. This was held on Saturday, August 23rd. This year it was held over at Valimar School. It included approximately 50 families. All the schools were represented, as well as all of our parent organizations, parent councils, special education, parent advisory council, known as CPAC, PTO, PTAs, and of course PEF. And the district office also had a display table, and we had community representation there. Pacifica School Volunteers and the Pacifica Library Foundation also had displays. So I'm very happy to announce we had an extremely positive opening of the 2014-15 school year, and we are well on our way.
I just would like to share with the public some of the comments I heard about the PEF event from the parents. Really felt welcomed, they felt more connected. One parent who has a child with special needs was feeling really nervous about a whole process, and she connected with some of the CPAC people, and when she left she says, "Oh, I feel so much better." So I just would like to say how important that event is for our new families to become more connected, and thank you to PEF and Valimar School in particular, and all the organizations that hosted, and principals all came out on a Saturday, and the PTO presidents or their representatives, so thank you to everyone in the community for coming together.
Well, and we thank you because I believe you were watching little ones.
Yes!
So thank you for doing that.
It's my kid fix once a year. Eric?
I just, on the decrease of enrollment, you say that you expect it to rise back up. How did that match our predictions of anticipated?
Very much so. We decreased certificated staff by 4 during staffing back in February, March time. So based upon projected enrollment, so it matches up pretty equivocally.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have a green team update, and thank you. Sorry, I'm running a little behind schedule today, so we appreciate that. Thank you, Christina.
So Christina Rimmer is here to talk about our green team work, and specifically our Safe Routes to Schools grant.
Great, well, thank you very much for having me. I'll be as quick as possible because I know we're over schedule, and Richard and Joan both know I can do it.
So the first thing is, just as a refresher for everybody who might not be as familiar with the program, Safe Routes to School is a program that's been implemented not just in California but nationally. And its goal is to make school a healthier, safer environment for kids and for kids to get outside and walk to school. So as you can see from the statistics here, there's been a significant decrease in the number of students who actually walk to school and a significant increase in the number of students who are driven in a single family vehicle on their way to school, okay? What we'll also show you, as you can see here, is that 72% of the families do that when they live within a quarter of a mile of their campus. So we're an open enrollment campus. People aren't always choosing the campus closest to their family, but even where they are, have that proximity, they're choosing to drive a student there. And sometimes it's because they're on their way to work, and it's convenient for them to do that, which makes perfect sense. And sometimes it isn't. And so we really have to ask ourselves, why are we struggling so much to get our families to walk their kids to school or to get their kids to walk to themselves to school? Because I'm sure some of us are old enough here to remember that back in the day, that's how we used to get to school. Okay, so what we're trying to do for the Safe Routes to School is decrease this travel to school via a single-family vehicle, as we talked about. And this program is administered by the San Mateo County Office of Education, so we partner with them. But again, as a reminder, it is a national program, and it's one that's funded from a number of large organizations. Going back a couple of years, we received a grant first in 2012 and 2013. First great year, which was fantastic. And the goal of that was to establish a baseline for each school. So how were students getting to school? How far away do they live from the campuses? What were the specific facility opportunities at any individual campus for helping to improve or remove barriers for students being able to walk to school? We also measured parental support, which we're still working on. In 2013 and 2014, we expanded some of the initiatives we had in our first year, such as Lower Your Carbon Footprint Days, Golden Sneaker Award Days. So we have monthly events that encourage kids to get out of their cars, families to get out of their cars, and the idea is that students will hopefully realize it's something that they can do comfortably, that they can perhaps repeat throughout the school year, not just on those monthly events. We also did have some limited capital funding for some small infrastructure improvements at the different campuses. So for example, realigning traffic flow patterns, et cetera. Again, following up on the recommendations that we had from our walking audit. So for this year, I'm moving too quickly. So for this year, our goal is to increase the number of students who walk, bike, or carpool to school by 15%. And that's 15% at morning drop-off and 15% at afternoon drop-off. Okay. The good news is we are on our way there. So over the last couple of years, we have seen about a 7 to 8% increase in the number of families who are walking, biking, or carpooling to school, which is terrific. But we obviously want to see that number go up, and we want to see that behavior be a consistent behavior. And I'm hoping that you're as horrified as I am by the disparity we have in these family vehicle trips versus bicycling versus cars and versus carpooling. Okay. So one thing we have been able to do very successfully is leverage our dollars. So this year we actually allocated some funding from our last year grant allocation and have partnered with the city of Pacifica to implement some capital infrastructure improvements for grant funding that they've also received through Caltrans and Safe Routes to School. And so as you can see, here's a fairly exhaustive list of what is planned. What I would say is that some of this does tie directly to the walking audit findings that we had from our auditors. Some of it does not perfectly align with that, really, because it was about what City of Pacifica had identified as some opportunities and what school district had identified as opportunities, and so we tried to synergize and partner together. Another way of saying it, for the $14,000 that we've invested, we got something like $100,000 plus in capital infrastructure improvement, and we did not have the budget to be able to do that within our school budget. Okay. So one of the big differences we want to do for this year is really integrate these coordinators for Safe Routes to Schools into the campuses. So one of the challenges we've had is that we're a primarily volunteer-driven activity, and so as we all know, that's not always as successful as we'd like it to be. So when you can get people into the schools, get this to be part of their regular routine, get it to be, have them absorb the change and just have it become a habit, it becomes a little bit easier. So what we want to do is create a very, and I say very small stipend because it is, quite small, but basically have somebody at each different campus help coordinate those Lower Your Carbon Footprint days, those Golden Sneaker Awards. We also incentivize the teachers for participating because, you know, if you incent people, they will do it. And so we can get those measurements of how many kids are participating, get the dialogue open about getting traffic to school, not via single-family cars. And so we're looking for this role at each individual campus to be able to help support that. And the good news is I believe we now have someone identified at each different campus to help support that role. Okay. What we also want to do, and again, this was a big learning for us, we had a number of events both in 2012, 2013, and in 2013, 2014, where we held bicycle rodeo events to help develop the skill set of bicycling that kids might have lost over the last few years. And what we've identified is really there's a sweet spot, and it's between 3rd and 6th grade where we feel that if we can get students out of, that their parents may be comfortable having them transport to school on a bicycle or walking, not too young, but they're not so old that they don't think it's cool. And so the idea is if we can get them out of the classroom, their family car at that point, hopefully we can begin to build this habit and we can begin to increase their physical activity. So what we're looking at is instead of having weekend rodeos where we had a much lower participation rate, is really bring this into the classroom. So the idea is we'll take 3rd and 4th graders across the entire district. So every 3rd and 4th grade class in the district will receive this education. They'll have 2 events. One will be in their PE class, but it'll be in class where they learn about the rules of the road, the skills required, etc. And there'll be a follow-up event the next day where they'll have hands-on practical bicycle skill practice. They will have helmets, they will have bicycles provided for them. Kids don't need to bring anything. But the idea is to really get that practical experience for students and hopefully the enthusiasm so that they can take it away and beg their mom and dad to let them bike to school. And on the bright side as incentives, we do have a bunch of helmets to give away for people who do want to make that a regular habit for them, because we obviously want them to get there safely. Just looking forward, our Lower Your Carbon Footprint Days, the next one is October 8th, which is International Walk Bike Carpool to School Day. And then as you can see, we have these running monthly with a fairly regular pattern that accommodates the school holidays, but does end in May because that's around the time we start to lose people as they get ready to drop off and go on vacation. And we do have some resources available if folks are interested. And that's it. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Christina, did you get any data about crossing guards and how that might impact whether parents allow their children to walk or not?
Absolutely. So we don't have any specific data that shows how much of an uptick that might result in parents being able to allow their kids to walk to school. But there is research that shows where you have crossing guards, it does increase parental comfort and safety with their kids walking to school. So Joan, you're absolutely right. I think the larger issue is trying to find funding for that. We've heard a number of different funding conversations tonight, and you know it is a challenge. Some of the things that have been talked about are using volunteers to do that. I think the real issue is that has to be a habit. If we look at Sunset Ridge, where they have a regular crossing guard, we see a larger number of students that are walking to school. The two may or may not be correlated. One might cause the other, and one might be a result of the other.
And thank you for the bike safety, because we've had several children members of our community who have not worn helmets, and it's not good.
Yeah, and I'm the crazy lady who shouts at them and says, "Does your mother know you're without a helmet?" So, Joan, we can give those helmets away. That doesn't mean that they're going to wear them, but it's a start.
But it's a start. It's a conversation.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, we are to local control accountability plan and assessment update. Okay, so this was our work study, and now we're having our formal board presentation.
Thank you. So I have a quick little PowerPoint that just recaps our assessment data from 2013-14. We did have a shift in state funding from, funding on the brain today, huh? In state assessments from the CSTs to the Common Core test, which is the Smarter Balanced Assessment. Oh, thank you, Josie. I was like, where? Thank you so much. So last year was just a field test, so we don't have any results from it. They won't, release any of the results. This year we will be getting results after the assessment in spring of 2015, but this will be a baseline year. We won't have any comparable data. What we do have is assessment from our DRA tests, which is a reading assessment, and our MARS tests, which is a performance-based assessment in math. We don't yet have a robust analytics tool, and so we'll be working on trying to secure that for the coming years. So we went over this in the work study, so I just want to draw your attention to just a few things. Our reading scores in most grade levels did decrease. So the red bar is for 13-14. And we attribute this to the fact that our teachers spent a lot of time analyzing data together. And I think the calibration is stronger now, and we're getting more accurate results. And overall, our reading levels are still above the county average. We're still strong in our reading scores. The light pink, what it looks like here, I'm not sure what color it was on my computer, but that bar is our goal for 2014-15. And this breaks down the reading results by demographic. You can see that overall we had a 74% proficiency rate in K3. And you can see that we do have an achievement gap. We have our Latino socioeconomically disadvantaged, that's what SED stands for, and English learner, EL, students all scoring around the same range in the upper 50%, which is closer to the county average. And then the students with disabilities scoring below that. For math, the tests change pretty dramatically year to year, so comparisons to the consortium is something we look closely at. In 12-13, the consortium, or the tester, was shifted to align with the Common Core state standards, and we hadn't aligned our teaching yet. But in 13-14, we did align our teaching to the Common Core state standards, so I think that's why we saw this big leap in comparison to the consortium. So the red bars are what percentage below the consortium we scored in 2012-13. So for fourth grade, we were 5 percentage points below the consortium overall. And then in the blue bars are our comparison to the consortium for 13-14. Here are the results by grade. The blue being 2013 scores and the red 2014 scores, and the lighter color the consortium scores. And so in many grade levels we did improve. 5th grade we did not, and 8th grade we did not. But again, these tests are different each year. Our demographic breakdown for the MARS assessment showed the same pattern of achievement gap with a little less drastic difference between our groups. And we do notice that we have Filipino students scoring more poorly in math when they did better in ELA than the average. Something for us to pay attention to. We have the standards test continues in science. This is not aligned to the new standards, but continues to be aligned to the old standards. In 5th grade, we see over the last 3 years our results are pretty flat, dropping slightly. And we set a goal for 14-15 based on a growth model of 77% proficiency. In 8th grade, we saw a little bit of a dip last year from 76% proficient to 66% proficient. This is just 8th grade, and they're tested on 3 years. They're 6th, 7th, and 8th grade standards. And we did have a little problems filling one of our 8th grade positions, so a lot of the students didn't have a highly qualified teacher, and so we're thinking that this is going to rectify itself for the coming year. The goal, therefore, even though this goal was set based on the 13-14 results, we may want to revise it to get closer to where we were in 12-13. And so this slide really summarizes the things I already said. So I'll move on to the next part of the presentation. Nelson, if you could go to the attachment. So these, the assessment data, no, the other one. There's two attachments. Thank you. So this assessment data, along with the goals and metrics that we designated in our LCAP, will be discussed at our district leadership team meeting to begin the work on restructuring our LCAP, revising it for the coming year. Again, we went over these at the work study, but the metrics, we have measures for all of the goals to determine if we are making progress towards meeting those goals. I don't know, should I go over them? I mean, just
Unless they have,
yeah.
Do you have any specific questions on those metrics? We went over them at the work study.
We had a 2.5-hour work study on this.
And they're posted online for everyone to see, as well as a link to the full LCAP.
The only thing I wanted to say was with regard to the problem of like what happens if you set a goal to go up and it actually goes down, and we obviously haven't dealt with that problem yet, but if we do, like I sort of feel like there should be, there should be a procedure for like, if that happens, the goal stays the same as it was the previous year, for instance, or whatever, the goal number adjusts downward, is that how you do?
And we need to go through revisions even this year, so like we're already seeing, we may want to modify some of our percentages, and so we will go through with the DLT, the district leadership team, to look at, do our measures still hold, looking at what we have and where we currently are. And I have to say that as we get through the process, this is supposed to be a 3-year plan, and if you're not demonstrating your gains as you had thought you would, there are some areas that we would have sanctions in relationship to reevaluating. A team could come in and help us look at what we're doing in our schools or in our district. So, but they very much want these goals to be our goals and things that we are in control of and feel are important to our community. So it's really sort of an interesting process that we're going through.
I realize I'm acronym challenged, but DRA squared is?
It's just DRA2. It's the second version of the DRA test.
Okay. Then the other question I have in thinking about part of this, when we talked about it at the study session of, what the actual numbers of kids and what sites they were in terms of trying to, because you identified we had an issue that we thought might be teacher related at one site, but if the ability to break it down into its smaller levels, so, because I'm less worried about the statistical validity from year to year as I am trying to identify if we have a problem somewhere with.
Great. So in preparation for the site plans, we're meeting with each principal individually to go over the scores and break them down by school site so that they can use that information to inform their site plans. So we are doing that with the principals, and we are highlighting things for them that we think that they should take a closer look at with their staff.
Because I know that there's always a lot of public pressure over statistics and numbers and achievement, and sometimes we've talked before about how we have 10% of the students are new to the district every year. If we're comparing 4th grade to 5th grade, but they may not be the same kids.
Right.
Even, so we're drawing conclusions from that, and I'm not sure that we necessarily draw the right conclusion. If
No,
we're
so
gonna drill
really,
down.
what we look for with the principals a lot of times is the positive, right? If you have one teacher that's really outscoring the rest of the teachers and their kids are reading more proficiently, we want to look at that and see what the teacher's doing in their classroom that we might be able to replicate in other areas. That's what we do a lot of, or if we see a grade level that's struggling in some way compared to the rest of the district, we might want to pay some special attention to making sure those teachers have the support that they need.
Great, thank you. I think that's where we get the bang for the buck.
Yeah.
It's not just doing it because we have to, but actually getting some positive results.
Absolutely.
So we'll see that reflected when we do the site plan process. Okay. Anything else? All right, moving right along. We have a resolution to revise the observed date of Lincoln's Day.
This is an annual notification to the board regarding resolution number 2014-9-17. It's recommended that the board approve this resolution, which allows you to authorize revising the date that our school district observes Lincoln Day. Ed Code 37220 states that public schools shall close in observance of this day. However, it also allows the governing board to designate any other day as the holiday. So with that being said, the 2014-15 school year calendar observes Lincoln Day during the week of February 16th through the 20th. And this is known as our district's President's Week.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, unless we're gonna have a lot of discussion.
Resolution number 2014-9-17-B to revise the observation date of Lincoln Day.
Wow, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Wait, we gotta
We
have
need
a
a
vote.
Oh,
All in favor?
Passes 5-0.
thank you.
Okay. All right, we now have to approve the unaudited actuals for the fiscal year 13-14.
Okay, tonight we're presenting the 2013-2014 unaudited actuals, and in accordance with Assembly Bill 1200, the board must review and approve the annual statement of receipts and expenditures for the district for the preceding school year. Once the board approves this document will be sent to the San Mateo County Office of Ed, and they will review the unaudited actuals. They have some standards that they go through, and they will also review these actuals. In addition, our auditors, our outside auditors, have reviewed the unaudited actuals, and they will be issuing a report to the board in January. So I know it's a long report, so I wrote a cover letter of 2 pages to kind of go over it. Let's see. The board did have a preview of the unaudited actuals when they adopted the budget on June 18th. There was some estimated actuals at that time, and based on what we have now, these are the final actuals, and I'll outline some of the differences from what we looked at in June and what we have now. One thing I did want to point out is we still continue to have a large ending fund balance, and it is a little bit deceiving because, as you remember, several years ago, the state stopped paying the school district what we used to call revenue limit state aid, and now it's LCFF funding. So what we have to do is record the revenue as if we've received it, but the state doesn't pay us until August, September, and that's why we have the loan, which we call the TRAN, and we go to the board in April to approve the loan, and that helps us to pay payroll from April, May, June. And then when we receive the funding from the state in August and September, we pay back the loan, which we are doing now. So this year, it has improved because the loan was in excess, almost $6 million in the last few years, and with Proposition 30, and it's called the Education Protection Account, and the state reducing the amount of deferrals, the state only owed us $3 million as of June 30th. And so we did obtain a loan of $2.3 million. So Nelson, that's perfect. You're on the second page. What I wanted to do is give you a breakdown of what our ending fund balance is comprised of, and it's listed there for you on the second page. You can see we have a small revolving account. Our reserve for economic uncertainty is $935,000. We continue to reserve $150,000 for the math adoption. However, that is not going to be enough for the math adoption because it's going to be about $300,000 to $400,000. So as we receive more lottery funds and LCFF, which is designated for instructional materials, will continue to save money for that math adoption. One of the things that's not unusual from year to year is the site's carryover funds, and that's, good fiscal planning on their part, and also because some of the things that they order in May and June are not received until July. And so we've listed the site carryovers after that, and then also we have the school SIPSA funds carryover. So they have their supply carryovers, their textbook, and their SIPSA, which is their school site funding carryover. And then after you subtract all of those things from the ending fund balance, we still have an unallocated balance of $462,000. The right-hand column are the carryover balances for the restricted side of the budget. Parcel tax was $40,000. Originally, we had projected $250,000 of parcel tax carryover, but during our study sessions with the board and our budget adoption, we talked about using the parcel tax to pay for computers, technology, and those purchases were able to be made before June 30th, and therefore the parcel tax carryover balance has gone down. And we will have a full report on parcel tax coming up because we'll be reconvening the parcel tax committee, and then we'll be able to bring that report to the board as well. And then you can see the rest of the carryovers. So there's some site carryover. Prop 39, we received the funds this past year, but we were not able to develop an expenditure plan until we hired a consultant, and we'll be bringing that proposed expenditure plan to the board in October so that we can move forward with Prop 39. Common Core, we received $640,000 of Common Core and spent some of it last year, and we'll be spending some of it this year. And then there's some restricted maintenance carryover and lottery materials. You don't always receive the materials before June 30th, and so sometimes we get them during the summer and there's carryover. So one of the things to point out is the carryover is a little bit higher than what we said when we adopted the budget, and that is because we did have some higher lottery fund revenues and the school site carryover balances, because we always budget the full amount for all the budgets, and then at the end of the year, as sites or some accounts are not spent, we list them as carryover balances. So we continue to be able to meet our cash flow needs throughout the school year, and we will review the cash flow monthly to see if, again, we need to go to the board for a loan in April. We would bring that to you. One of the things I really wanted to point out to the board this time was our child nutrition fund had a loss of just $50,000. And over the last several years, our contracted vendor, Sodexo, has had a guarantee on the contract, and they have been paying us $50,000+ a year to cover the loss. And the guarantee covers based on what our budget is established at the beginning of the year, and they have a guarantee on their costs, their food costs, but their guarantee does not cover our district staff labor costs. And so this year, we did have increased labor costs and for various reasons, and we suffered a loss of $20,000. And so in these unaudited actuals, there is a transfer that was not budgeted when we presented the unaudited actuals of $20,000 from the general fund to the child nutrition fund. And we will talk more about that as we go into first interim, because when we do first interim, we'll have a revised budget for this year. And unfortunately, we will be budgeting a loss again this year in the child nutrition program, and we will have more discussion on that and things that we can do to alleviate some of that loss. As far as the other funds, all of the other funds are balanced and have positive cash flow. And again, we'll provide a more comprehensive update for the board when we do first interim on this year's budget. But right now, these are the unaudited actuals from last year. Yes, Matt?
So with regard to the school site and SIPSA fund carryovers, my question is, so I see $113,000 in SIPSA funds carryover. Like, isn't their budget only like $250? Like, aren't SIPSA funds only something like $250,000 all told? How much are the?
It's more than that, and I can get the exact figure for you and send that to you.
It just seems like a huge, I totally understand prudent budgeting, but it seems like there's a humongous amount of
it is large
retention, and I feel that the reason that I bring it up is I think the board hands out the SIPSA funds with the intention, obviously, that the sites will use them. And so I just want to make sure that those sites are actually getting used, because again, we have this issue with, like, you know, if the stuff doesn't go in, it doesn't get paid for by the SIPSA funds, then the principals go to the PTOs and say, you have to pay for it for us. So, you know, so in theory, I would prefer that those funds got spent, since that's what they're being given to the principals.
Yes, that's a very good point, and some of that is one of the schools was budgeting for the VP, part of a VP, and carrying over funds, and then as part of the budget discussions with the board, we agreed that, you know, we were picking up that portion, and so some of that is that. Some of it is also English, the EIA program, English Language Learner Program went away, and the sites had some carryover funds there, and we had to make sure those funds, because they were restricted state funds that were going away, had to be spent first, thus carrying over more SIPSA funds. Same goes for Title I. They have to spend the more restricted funds first, and so sometimes there's some shifts there. And they are very prudent and very careful with their budgeting. Sometimes they wait till the end of the year to make their purchases, just to make sure they have enough money and that they don't go over budget. And so, but those are very good points. And I'll get the figure for you for the total allocation.
Thank you.
So they're spending the money, it's just not quite in alignment with how we budget.
Yeah, they are spending the money, and I would say a significant amount is on payroll costs, because they're paying for positions like library and media clerks and some of the things that we don't provide.
Anyone else? So, Josie, my favorite topic, deferrals. Is this ever going away, or do we need to go back to Jerry Hill and have a little heart-to-heart?
From what I'm reading, it's going away. They've been reducing the deferrals, and, you know, it went from 6 million to 3 million.
Okay.
So it's very positive. During the year, there are no more deferrals. It was that cross-year deferral, and it has been significantly reduced for 14-15.
For 14-15, so we see that going. Okay, nice. And then the additional money that we spent, that was not for computers, it was for Wi-Fi upgrades, right?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
And we completed the work before June 30th.
Spent my money on.
That's right.
Okay, and then I had one other question, and that's on page 3 of the unaudited actual. So it's the other one, Nelson. We were working really hard at the end of last year to have a balanced budget for 14-15, but now I see deficit spending for $645,000.
Yes, and that's a very good question. This is the adopted budget from May. And since then, we have brought up budget updates to the board,
right?
Which are not reflected in these figures. So when you do the unaudited actuals, this is the state software program, it uploads the last board acted budget, and that was the adopted budget. So that was May, June, and when we do first interim, we have given you more updated figures in study sessions, and those figures are not reflected in here.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm not losing my mind.
No.
Do we have a balanced budget for 14-15, or we're like real close?
Yeah, the last time we met and we presented that to you, it was about a $27,000 deficit.
Okay, that's
that was
reasonable.
not including the food service loss. And so we need to account for approximately $50,000 additional loss.
Okay.
And then when we get, you know, all the updated payroll and all the updated information, we'll be able to present a better picture for you.
But, okay, thank you. Now I feel much better.
But none of that means you're not losing your own.
Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad that you're there to support me every moment of the way.
Just this end of the table, try not to pull our weight.
All right. So do we have any more questions? This is an action item, so we need a motion for approval.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Passes 5-0.
5-0.
Thank you, Joseph.
All right, so, yes, thank you, Josie. The next thing is the adoption of the GAN resolution. This is an action item.
Okay, the GAN amendment under the California Constitution requires each school board to establish the maximum appropriation limit, which is your maximum spending every year. And you do that for the current fiscal year and then also for the future fiscal year. And you report that to the Superintendent of Public Instruction and the Department of Finance. And so the resolution attached reflects the GAN calculation is attached. And the recalculated GAN for 2013-14 is just 22 million plus 22 million plus 433,842. And then there's a target set for 2014. And our district is not spending over the GAN limit. And so the board needs to review this and adopt this resolution to, if we did overspend, we'd have to, write a letter and do some calculations. But fortunately, we're not overspending on the GAN limit.
So the purpose of this is just to prevent school boards from just authorizing a whole bunch of expenditures for no reason and completely.
It's kind of like a checks and balances.
Okay. We good for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no
I move we
question.
adopt the GAN resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, great. So now we're to board bylaws and policies, and the first one is Board Policy 6163.1, which is library and media centers.
So I bring this back to the board. We had a conversation about it last June, I believe. And at that time, I just did not feel comfortable in understanding and knowing enough about how our district was working with San Mateo County Office of Education and how our board policy was truly reflective of our practices. And so since then, I've had the opportunity to speak with Tina Nelson, who is the coordinator for library services of San Mateo County Office of Ed. And so I feel much more comfortable in bringing back this board policy because we do not have a librarian in our district. So we have a contract with San Mateo County Office of Ed, and Tina Nelson serves as our librarian. However, she works with our library media assistants in our district, meets with them regularly. She also oversees the ordering of the materials for our libraries and helps us make sure that we're putting in the information so that it goes to the state as it needs to be reported. What I also must say is, in speaking with Tina, she is highly impressed with our library media assistants and staff for the services that we provide in our district. That she, as I sat and discussed it with her, she said, "Wendy, we are just really doing a fabulous job and making to ensure that our libraries have the appropriate materials." I know Valimar, Padma was newly hired and has really gone through flipping the library materials to ensure that they are up to par as far as dates and editions, etc. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and we're just very, very fortunate to have such a team of people. This year, I will become much more involved with them. We're meeting on Friday, looking at our library media tech plan to ensure that we have incorporated some of these ideologies and these practices into reality into our district. And as Matt mentioned, we need to start looking at what does a 21st century library look like. Are we there? No. Are there some things that we might be able to do? It's kind of like we always have to prioritize, as the Organizational Efficiency Review has enlightened us in our departments. We need to do that for our libraries as well, because it's really becoming, in my opinion, a wonderful haven for our students who want to complete homework, want to have access to computers, want to do something as opposed to being outside and maybe doing some group work in the library during lunchtime. So it's and after school and before school. So I think we have a real opportunity here that I'd like to see us kind of keep working on. Any questions?
This is first reading, right?
Yes, this is a first reading, yeah. Andrea?
Just a comment, and not really a question about the library media centers, because they are running even without the probably what we really should have eventually would be a certificated librarian in the district.
Right.
So, yeah, something on that long list of
Right.
things we'd like to bring back.
Well, and that's something to look at, because when we looked at it once before, long before the budget crisis, at that point, most of our libraries were actually being run by volunteers. And what became shocking to the board at that point in time was we had $1 million asset in our libraries that was being completely run and overseen by fabulous volunteers. And I think we have to always remember that, you know, that's, as much as that's wonderful that they're there, as part of what we need to do, we need to utilize our assets appropriately, and that's partly with staffing. So, just a note on the blast from the past. Okay, so we'll bring this back on consent, and then we have one more board policy, AR 5141.52, suicide prevention.
Which PSD the district currently does not have. So our district relies on California School Boards Association, CSBA, online gamut service to bring attention to certain policies and administrative regulations. This one tonight I'll be explaining is on suicide prevention. So the policy that is presented to the board is a CSBA sample with some markings on it. Our school district recognizes that suicide is a major cause of death among youth, and it should be taken very seriously. In order to attempt to reduce suicidal behavior and its impact on students and family, the superintendent or designee shall develop preventative strategies and intervention procedures, which I'm happy to say we do have ongoing currently in our district. Some statistics, though. The statistics on youth suicide deaths are very alarming. Our state superintendent, Tom Torlakson, noted that in the state of California, we lose a youth every other day to suicide. This is approximately 172 deaths per year. California Department of Education suggests that it is imperative that school districts adopt policies and administrative regulations to address suicide prevention in our schools. Just to remind the board, we have currently in our district school climate and safety teams at every school site to make sure that we are implementing strategies and looking at a positive school climate. This is also a specific action that falls in our counseling and social services support plan, which was developed 2 years ago. We also have received data from the 2014 California Healthy Kids Survey. It showed that 95% of our fifth graders feel safe or very safe at school. But it also showed that 74% of our seventh graders felt safe or felt very safe at school. So the number decreases, and that concerns us. And we will be bringing attention to that concern throughout the course of this school year. As an attempt to address behaviors that indicate a need for mental health support, we've put our administrative staff through a training called Youth Mental Health First Aid, sponsored by Behavioral Health Recovery Services. And on October 13th, one of our professional development days, we're going to put approximately 60 targeted Pacifica School District staff members, ranging from certificated to classified, through the same training. This training gives us helpful hints of what to look for when a child is in need. So I ask the board tonight, based on the current statistics with youth suicide, that you adopt the attached CSBA sample, board policy, and administrative reg. I do understand, though, that this is the first reading for it.
You need an adoption tonight?
No.
Oh.
It's first reading.
Okay.
Maybe by the second reading.
Yeah, okay.
It's a lot to take in.
Yes.
Just a comment, I serve on the Pacifica Collaborative as the board's rep, and they've done a couple presentations on this, and I think what the really exciting part about this is this training is getting pushed out beyond, away from the psychologists and the staff, down to all all variety of members, because they've recognized that it could be the school secretary, it could be a paraprofessional, it could be anybody who would have contact with kids to be better trained to see behavior that needs to be dealt with. And it's a whole different philosophy of approaching the issue, and it's really exciting because I think it pushes the training out to people who, a lot of our staff, so many of our staff are in contact with the kids and see stuff, but may not necessarily know that that's a trigger mechanism and that they need to tell somebody else, to bring in more assistance. So, Ray and I talked about this last year. We weren't able to arrange it then, but I'm really excited that we've got it going now, because I think it's a really excellent use of our resources, and it talks about some of that continuing education training for all of our staff beyond our certificated staff too.
Yes. It's also nice to see that it's being pushed down and not just targeted at high school levels, but realizing that kids at increasingly younger levels or younger ages are getting into these positions.
Yeah. Matt?
And I think it's also important that we recognize that a vastly disproportionate percentage of youth suicides are LGBTQ. And so, as a result, I think something like our transgender policy, I think we have to keep in mind that when we implement things like that, hopefully that is helping to create the climate of tolerance that that will help reduce those impulses, because that's, it's not just the moment that somebody decides to commit suicide, but it's the entire environment that leads up to that. So.
Okay, well, we'll bring that back on consent. Future agenda items. I guess we have a work study. Was there anything?
And I just wanted to remind everyone, the work study will be on a Tuesday and not a Wednesday, October 21st. I also wanted to ask, and maybe Josie, is it October 8th or the 29th where we would have a report or a presentation on the Prop 39 expenditure plan?
Most likely the 29th.
The 29th?
Yeah.
And then I wanted to point out too that we do have 2 events to attend. Candidate Forum Night will be September 23rd up at Sunset Ridge at 7 o'clock, and September 30th will be at Ortega at 7 p.m. And thank our candidates for attending the forum, those 2 evenings.
I'm sorry, the time on the
7.
7, okay. And the 23rd is Sunset Ridge?
Yes.
Okay.
And we did report, or I did report last time, I believe, that Cynthia Kaufman would be the moderator, and unfortunately she had a scheduling conflict, so it will be Eileen Manning-Ballard. And Connie Menifee will do it on September 30th.
Okay. Anything else? We are adjourned, 9:32.